Hey everyone, we are live on Brofessor Bats and Friends. Thank you for being here. Oh man, boy, it's been a while since we have been behind the mics. We've been
Too
traveling,
long.
doing things. Tony's had a daughter playing softball, and we've just been busy this summer. And it's been a while since we've been here. It's good to be back.
It is really
Good to
good.
be
Really good back.
really good to be back. We had this show scheduled for a month ago, a little less than a month ago. I had befriended Tanner on Facebook and talked to him a little bit, and I asked him to come on the show, and our schedules didn't work out then, and finally we're able
Yep.
to get you on. Tanner, we welcome you to the show. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Glad to be here.
Yeah, well,
Heck yeah.
I am excited to have you here. It's not often that we get to see somebody that we follow and watch and admire as much as the work that you do, and
No.
get to have them on
A
the show.
celebrity.
Yeah, I'm
No,
kind of
no.
starstruck right now. Sorry.
I know it.
Yeah, yeah, and you know it was funny when I first contacted you. You said, "Well, we'll see if we can get the other people to come on." I was like, "No, I want you. I want to talk to you."
Well, here
Because
I am.
yeah, you are one of the ones that I fell in love with on the last. Well, I say that fell in love with it. You know,
Careful now.
You're gonna make me blush here.
Yeah, during the last series, going back to Alaska, because a lot of the things that you did really were some of the things that kept me watching the show, and
Awesome.
it was so cool. But man, I appreciate you being on here.
Yeah.
Tell us a
Big
little
fans.
bit about yourself. Give us an introduction for those of us who may not know who you are.
Oh, man.
Tell us, yeah, romance. Thank you.
Well, I'm Tanner Johnson. I am originally from Laramie, Wyoming, born and raised on a ranch outside of Laramie. What really got me involved in like photography, videography was I went up to college in Powell, Wyoming, which is Northwest College. And I actually got my degree in photography there. And I also met my, at the time, girlfriend, but soon to be wife, Randy Johnson. She was also majoring in the photo program in Powell, and she's actually from Livingston, Montana, which is just right here over the hill from Bozeman, Belgrade area where I'm at. And so that's how I ending up in this area as I moved up here from Wyoming, because it's just such a pretty area. There's a lot of opportunity. I wanted to do something with my photography. So I ended up finding a job at the camera shop here in Bozeman, which was called Bozeman Camera, or is called Bozeman Camera. So I worked there for 8 years. I ended up becoming the manager, like second down from the owner, basically. And that's how I started to get to know Claycroft. And I was already starting to get into the overland / off-roading realm. I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee that I had built up. And then Clay started pulling up in like the original 2013 Tacoma, the original 100 Series Land Cruiser. And I was like, oh man, like, what is this all about? So I got to know him, started to watch the show, became a big fan. And then towards the end of my time there, I wanted to do something different. I just wanted to try something new. So I ended up chatting with Clay one day. He came in to look at like a tripod or something. And I was like, hey, what does a guy got to do to like help out on my day off or something? Like I'm a kind of a self-taught mechanic. I've done all my own work. I'm always like wanting to learn new things. So I ended up coming in on like Tuesdays on my days off from the camera store and ended up doing some installs here and there. And little did I know that in the background, it was kind of testing for Clay to find out if I was a good fit or not, because he made some offers of maybe I could go on a trip and be a cameraman, and that was clashing with my schedule at the camera shop. So I ended up like not being able to make it work. And then Clay, one day when we were headed over to do that, there was that tribute video we did for Jeff at the end of the Overlander series. Mm-hmm. So I was just like a driver / like runner, like helping out in the behind the scenes of that tribute video. But on the way over there, he basically said, well, what would it take to get you to come on full time with us? And I was like, oh, like, did not expect that. So he offered me a job and I took it, and I couldn't be happier. And I've been learning a ton and building out my knowledge on both learning the video side, because I've never shot video before I started. And this was in spring of 2019. My first week full time with them, they flew me, literally, I put in my 2 weeks at the camera store. I finished on a Friday. Then that Monday, they flew me to Detroit to pick up Odin, the Jeep Gladiator that we built. And I drove it 2.5 days to Expo West in 2019.
Oh, no.
And then I spent the rest of the week there at Expo. And I'm just like, oh, my gosh. Like, such a big change from going to the camera store day after day, doing the same thing, to suddenly I'm being flown to Detroit to drive 2.5 days, 1,800 miles to Flagstaff, Arizona. So
that's got to be culture shock.
It was a whirlwind. Yeah, it was definitely hit the ground running. But man, I knew right away. It was like, I like this. Like, every week can be completely different from the last week. Like, every day can be completely different.
Yeah.
There was one day in 2019 when we were doing the Great Pursuit prepping with the powered paragliders. I was getting to work. I pulled into the hangar and I got out and I went in, and I didn't really have an idea of what I was going to do that day. I think I was going to work on some wiring on one of the trucks. And I ended up hearing one of our ham radios in the hangar was going off, and it was Clay and Ty. They were in the air and they were trying to call the hangar because they were running out of fuel and they couldn't get back to where they took off. So then the next thing I knew, Silas, one of our editor cameramans at the time, and I were taking Trinity with the toy hauler down this county road trying to catch up and find them. And I was like,
oh my goodness,
I love this. Like, the fact that I went from, oh, I might be doing this, to suddenly I'm hauling butt down some county road to go save them. Like, it was pretty awesome. So yeah,
it's gotta be one of those dream jobs where you wake up and wonder, what in the world am I going to be doing today?
Yeah.
It's got to be something new every day, and you wake up in a different world or
oh yeah. It's trips aside, because the trips are a whole different animal, right. But it is one of those things that we do have those stressful days. We have deadlines, we got things that aren't working, and it's like, yeah, I get stressed, but man, what we're doing, and the fact that I'm not sitting in like some office cubicle or something like that, I count myself very lucky to be a part of all of it.
That's amazing. I've been to Bozeman, been in and out of there. That is the most awesome airport I've ever been to. It's like a giant log cabin.
It is, yeah. It has
so
that feel
beautiful.
to it. Yeah, I really like it, and I love the fact that where I'm at, I mean, we're like a 10-minute drive to the airport, so makes it really nice. Where I grew up down in Laramie, we'd have to drive about 2.5-3 hours to Denver International Airport to go anywhere. So it's nice to have an international-ish airport. So
well, I talked to a local person that I sat by on the airplane when we were flying in there, and it was January, I think. So we were actually going to Yellowstone to do snowmobiling trip with a bunch of veterans. And I talked to a local that was on the plane by me, and he said that one of the bragging rights that Bozeman has is they have never dismissed school because of snow. And I thought, they must have some buses around here that are beasts, because you get a lot of snow. I thought that was so cool, because the amount of snow that you get is massive, and to never dismiss school because of snow, man, if it snows a half inch here, we're dismissing for a week. It's crazy.
If the forecast calls for it by noon, the schools are just like, just go ahead and send them home.
We're
So
out.
they don't even see.
Don't
what's
even-
happening.
They don't even
Oh,
wait
yeah.
for the snow to get here. No.
I agree. The snowstorms we got when I was a kid are definitely more than what we get now. But I remember growing up and we were at a rural schoolhouse in little Laramie, Wyoming. And I remember we'd wake up and we'd turn on the TV and the news would be coming out of Denver. And they would be talking about they got like 3 inches of snow in Denver. So the schools are closed. It's a snow day. Meanwhile, I look out and I can barely make through the blizzard. Our school bus coming through, plowing and pushing snow out of its way. And I'm just like,
That's great. That's great.
As a kid, I was like, come on. I want a
Give
snow
us
day.
a break, man.
Yeah.
Give us a break.
Yeah, it takes a lot for the weather to shut things down around here.
That's awesome.
For sure.
That's awesome.
My dad traveled around when I was little, and we lived in Minot, North Dakota, for a couple of years. And when it started snowing, the snow never went away. The whole winter. It
North
didn't go away
Dakota
till
is
constant.
like
Yeah.
I think North Dakota is the coldest place on earth. It's just unreal.
It was awful.
Oh,
I rode motorcycle in North Dakota in July and almost froze to death. So I can't imagine the winter. So.
Oh, yeah, that would be rough.
So Porker states on here, and he kind of reiterates our starstruckness. You know, he said when we went through Laramie, I expected to see a giant sign that said "Home of Tanner Johnson." That's kind of what we all thought, but that's pretty cool. Misty, thanks for being on here. We appreciate you being on here and saying hey to us. But yeah, telling us where you're from. I know you've got a little son, right?
Yep. His name's Jace. He's going to be 2 on the 24th.
2. I knew he was really young.
Wow.
He's a riot.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. He looks like a trip.
Thanks.
2-year-olds are some of the funnest, most challenging
Yep.
people on the earth.
Yep. He's getting to that. Or go ahead.
I was going to say, I used to think that.
Now you've got
my daughter's in 7th grade, going on 7th grade.
Yeah,
so.
12, 13 it goes from like 2 and then they become really good until they hit like 12, 13, and
that's what I've heard as well.
Brain damaged. Yeah.
He's
you have something to look forward to.
He's definitely starting to do the he knows no very well. He knows no.
Sure.
Yeah, and so everything I'll ask him if he wants to do this or that. He's like, no, but he also does a good job of when he does want to do something, he'll nod his head and go, please, and sign it at the same time because we taught him to sign,
cool.
please and stuff. So he's been a lot of fun, but he's definitely getting into that stage of wanting to test the boundaries and try to pout about something not going his way. And our dog, we just got a puppy, a golden doodle puppy named Louie. And if our dog just brushes him, he'll go, ah! And it's like, no, you're fine. He tries to be dramatic to get attention, I feel like.
I'm wondering if you have the mother's curse. You know, when I was growing up, the mother's curse was, I hope you have kids that act just like you. And it worked with me. It worked with me. I had kids that I had to go through the same things that I put my parents through. And I'm wondering, do you think that'll be something with you? You think he's going to act just like you when you were a kid?
I hope so. From everything I've heard, that I was a fairly well-behaved kid. It was my brother, on the other hand.
See,
he was a bit more of a handful. So
yeah, my sister was that way. She was just all the time getting me into trouble. But
yeah, I was an only child, so I didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, well, you had nobody to blame though. So
that's right.
True.
See, we had somebody to blame for all the bad stuff that happened.
Yep, exactly.
Now, Tanner, tell me, how did you develop a love for photography and videography? When did that start?
Videography started when I started with XOverland. I'd shot video here and there, but I had never really put it together. I did a few random little things for myself, and it was satisfying, but mostly photography. I actually got a digital camera on my 16th birthday. And I was always kind of into taking photos in the past, grabbing my parents' old film camera and using up 3 rolls of film at the zoo on a vacation or something as a kid. But when they bought me a digital camera for my birthday, that pretty much jump-started it. And then graduating from high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I always knew that I had photography as a hobby. And then one of my friends that went up to Northwest College said, hey, they actually have one of the best photo programs in the country in this little 2-year community college in rural Wyoming. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And I knew some people that went up there from high school. So I looked into it, and they had a great program, and one thing led to another, I guess. And
Wow.
Now, were you always into like nature, or did you take
Yeah.
wedding pictures, or did you branch out any at all?
So I do wedding photography with my wife. My wife and I both own Yellow Horse Photography. And so we've been shooting weddings around here. Now with my schedule with trips and stuff, it's a little bit harder for us to reliably book out weddings. But we're trying to get that figured out more. But yeah, so I started with nature, wildlife, even with my little point and shoot camera. When I was 16, I'd go out and try to shoot like old school. Like we grew up on a ranch, so everything was rustic and antique. And so I tried to get artsy there. And then I got into more wildlife photography. So now I shoot my personal camera. I have a Nikon D850 with a 500 millimeter f5.6, and I have the 7200, the 21.8, the 24-120. And that's the kit that I bring on the trips to do the photography, like up in Alaska. Basically my D850 and my 70-200 and the 35 f1.4 were like, they lived on, those are the two main lenses I shot with. But yeah, so nature and wildlife was definitely what got me into it. And that's still my passion. That's what I'll go out and do on the side. But then for the business, we do weddings, portraits, real estate. With the drone, I'll fly real estate, and I've done a lot of interior photography of houses, and pretty much anything that they, want to hire us for, we'll do for sure.
Yeah,
sure.
That's awesome.
Well, that's very interesting, because everybody's got hobbies that a lot of us don't know about, and that's interesting that you do that on the side too. So with XOverland, what is your actual position, title? What is your actual job that you do, that you're supposed to do? I know it ranges, every day, but you could be a mechanic one day and an air pilot one day or whatever. But what's your actual position there?
So my actual job title is I'm their fleet manager. So that basically means that I'm in charge of the entire fleet of trucks, making sure that all the maintenance done on them, any installs get done. Like either I'll do the install, or I need to hire a shop or somebody else to come in to do it. So I'm the one that's in charge of making sure that when that date comes up for those trucks to ship out on a trip, they're all ready to go. And so then below that, I'm the photographer / videographer, cameraman, whatever needs to be done, the talent. So in front of the camera. But like in Alaska, I was mostly behind the camera until the fishing poles came out.
Right.
Yeah, that's my day to day when I show up to work, I'm basically looking at the trucks, whatever needs to be done to the trucks, get installed on the trucks, what have you. And then also part of being a fleet manager, I'm also still right now in charge of, like right now we're working through our loadout for our new series coming up. So I'm also in charge of getting the cameras all squared away. Since I have that background, I go through and make sure that the lenses are right. If there's anything new we want to try out or do, a lot of that I'm still learning because it's all the video world versus the still world. But that stuff I love and I enjoy learning as well. So,
well, I've noticed that here recently you've done a lot of drone shots. Is that something that you really enjoy? Is the drone footage, the drone work?
Oh, it's so much fun. I've always been into it, but I've held off getting our own personal drone. But through XOverland, it's been a lot of fun to learn it. And now that I've acquired when I started with them, I acquired my commercial pilot's license for drone work. So now I can fly it, for our business. And so that's why I got the new Mavic 3. I've been waiting for a small drone that had really good camera capabilities because all of them shoot really great video. But the new Mavic 3 has the same size sensor as what our Inspire has, or Micro Four Third any Micro Four Third mirrorless camera has that larger sensor. So that's what I was really waiting for. It was a bigger sensor drone to do landscape photography, as you saw in my Instagram.
Right.
And so now that's what I use for our own business. And it's a ton of fun to fly it, especially with Clay, with our big drone, because we can do some pretty amazing shots when we work together.
What big drone do you have?
Oh, we run the Inspires.
Okay.
Just the DJI Inspire. Yep.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I can tell you, you know, I met Clay and Rochelle last year when they came to More Expo, and you know, a lot of times when you meet people that are, you know, that popular, that have that many followers, you really don't know what you're going to run into, how they're going to accept, you know, the little people like us. And let me tell you, they stayed. I was actually working at the Rental Rack booth, had my vehicle in there, and they stopped by and chatted and talked about just everything for a good 30 minutes. I mean, they were just walking through and had such a great time. I got my picture made with them and really enjoyed them, and just down to earth people, just super nice people. I was very impressed.
Awesome.
And I know that working for somebody that you respect, but you also are friends with, has got to be another part of that dream job aspect, because you can work for anybody, but if you don't enjoy your job, it's not going to be something that you wake up to and love going to every day.
Yeah, they're great folks, and just seeing their ambition and their drive to pursue whatever dream that they come up with has been very inspiring. And I love working with them every day for sure. And I love the fact that in my old job, I worked with a lot of bachelors. And so it was really hard to connect with them when it came to, at the time I was trying to, you know, we were trying to start a family. You know, I couldn't talk to them about anything family or marriage related. Yeah. And so now to be with a group that's all married, they all have families of their own, it's really refreshing, because then if something comes up and I got to take a day or two off or something, they completely understand, they get it, because they've been there, done that. So it's really refreshing for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Well, tell us about the trips that you take, you know, kind of like start to finish, about what, like let's say, for example, the last series that y'all put out on the Alaska trip. Start to finish, what does your position look like? Because you actually did go on that trip, and you were in charge of what and putting all that together, making sure everything was done. So I guess you started with the vehicles, making sure they were ready, and then you flew out there and met them and did all the video work. And how did all that look behind the scenes, kind of like?
Trying to remember what even all that happened. It's such a whirlwind. I'm
sure.
Even the other day, I was sitting there, I was like, the build season from last year, like, what did I even do? Like, what was I even a part of that? Like, just such a whirlwind.
Blur, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was a pretty big push. I mean, as you know, like the P-Corps for our Orange Tacoma didn't even show up until the week before they were scheduled to send out to the ferry in Seattle. Wow. So that was a big scramble to get that all bolted on. Luckily, though, that's already a pretty plug-and-play system. You just have to bolt it to the truck and plumb in a few things, and it's good to go. So, but it was definitely a mad dash, and that's where, as a fleet manager, I'm basically the one coordinating all that. So we had the Van Stralen boys there. We have Ryan Connolly coming in because he lives nearby, and then we have Eric Olson from the South America series. He comes by. And so that's where my job comes in, is I basically manage, okay, so-and-so, you got to do this, so-and-so, I need you on camera to film this and this. So I'm kind of coordinating all that. And then Clay's there if he doesn't have his appendix removed.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where my job looks like when we're prepping for the trips is I'm basically managing all the chaos that's happening. And then once we're on the trips, it's kind of, Clay's the director, so he's running the show there, and I'm just kind of doing what I'm told. And, when we need to get out and film, I'll be probably the main person to hop out and grab the camera, at least in Alaska. And then if we say like the big drone's up, then I know immediately whatever truck I'm in, I'm hopping into the passenger seat or the rear seat to run the camera controls while Clay's flying the main drone. And then if I see any photography potential, I'll grab the radio mic and be like, hey guys, hold up. If we're not in a big hurry to get somewhere, I'm going to get a shot really quick. So then I have like a little handheld mic that I can grab and coordinate, and I'll tell them to go turn around and come back up this road or something so I can get a few quick shots of the trucks coming up this cool section of the road or what have you. So yeah, it's pretty much chaos on the trips. Yeah. Other than, it's like there's times where we can slow down and get more methodical, but a lot of it's a lot of run and gun and shooting. And then sometimes we just have days where we just need to get to the next spot, cameras go away, and then we can just drive or relax. And that's usually when I can actually drive the vehicles, is when the cameras are turned off.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Well, I love how on your series, first of all, like Porker says, Porker was actually on the trip with us that went to Wyoming. Your cinematography skills, the way that y'all put videos together is second to none. I have to agree with him on that. That's really what, not only, having met Clay and Rochelle and knowing and like watching on video, like I met those
yeah.
But the cinematography, the drone shots, the way that y'all put everything together, it's almost like being at the movie theater. And
awesome.
Is that what you're after? Are you after that high quality, I don't even know what to call it,
the wow factor,
the movie magic.
The opening scene. The drone footage coming in of the big ferry, it's just like all you hear. Yeah, all you hear is the sounds of the sea, the seagulls, and all of that. I was hooked.
Yeah, that's all part of that movie magic for sure.
Magic.
That's where it really pays to be experienced with the drone, because just that shot, I wish I could take credit for that one, but that was all Clay, because I wasn't there for that. But just the smoothness and the lack of any kind of sudden movement or change, which would normally get cut out of any of our kind of edits, just the fact that it was one solid clip. I mean, that was a once in a lifetime shot to get it right, and you couldn't go back and reshoot it. The ferry's going
there's very few one and dones, but
that was.
And I'm sitting here thinking, if I were just, the average Joe going up there, I wouldn't have been able to fly my drone, or I wouldn't have thought that I could have flown my drone like right there. Like I wouldn't have been permitted to do so.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just
you definitely want to know what laws, make it legal or not. But we always abide within the laws for sure.
Right.
And there's so many. It's unreal. You have to know where you're at, where you're going, where your drone's going. Especially when you're in a place that, is that a research thing for you to know where you're going to be and where the drone can fly and where it can't?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is just like, it's, international water. It's anything above. So like, say around you guys, the landowner owns the land, not the airspace. So it's perfectly legal. I mean, there's definitely some gray area with harassing people or what have you, but there's nothing illegal about flying a drone over somebody's property.
Right. Unless the federal government owns it.
Yeah, exactly. Then you got to be careful. And there's the airspace laws, which that's all stuff you learn when you take the Part 107, the remote pilot's license test. So there's airspace laws, and a lot of these drones are smart enough that it will not let you take off if you're within that airspace. Or it'll actually, just the other day, I was flying my drone along the mountain range, and there was a random stretch of airspace that is reserved for helicopters to fly up and over a pass for like rescue stuff or just frequenting over the mountain range. So my drone just literally just comes to a complete halt, and I can be full stick forward, and it's like, nope, can't go there. And so I have to, and I could literally like follow it by like along the edge or what have you. So I mean, the drones, if you have a smart, like a DJI drone, it knows where all that stuff is.
Yeah.
Now, if you have the homemade DIY stuff, that's where you got to be careful, because it doesn't know anything. So you could fly it anywhere, anytime, and you could get in a lot of trouble doing that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, one of the things that I love on your videos is how, and we talked a little bit about this before we went live, but how unscripted a lot of it is. You know, a lot of us who are sitting back on our couches with our popcorn and our Cokes think, oh, well, they meant to do that. But you know, like we were talking about on the last series, you know, the fishing tournament that y'all got into, and that really caught my attention. I was like, go Tanner, you're gonna get it. You know, the fish hook in the finger, or the, you know, I thought it was great that Clay came out after the big windstorm and said, you know, I forgot to tie the awning down and it destroyed our awning. And I mean, just, you feel like, wow, these guys are more like me than what I thought they were. Because that's happened to me. You know, I love that. It makes it more real life. For
sure. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing scripted about the show, except for, I mean, there's times where we're like, oh, it'd be cool to do a scene like the rappelling scene where we went down this cliff face. Like, those are the things that we plan ahead to add to the story or to add to the content. But nothing, we don't go into any situation with like a script or any kind of pre-planned. Nothing's planned out at all. So any failures we have, it's either not significant enough to show on camera, or we show it, or it doesn't.
The row in the boat.
The row in the boats.
You're turning around in circles. That was
those
so
boats
great.
are a lot harder to row.
I bet.
Because I've rowed like big float boats down the Yellowstone through rapids, but the big ones, they're very slow to respond and stuff. Those things, I mean, one row and you'll spin around in a circle. So I kind of hit the ground running in that situation too, to get thrown right into those rapids. And then John yelling on the front, "We're all going to die," didn't really help my confidence.
No, but it sure made good for a good scene. It sure made for a good scene.
Yeah, and that was actually a very cut down scene too, because that's what happens in a lot of the episodes, is that we just have so much we can't show because it just starts to drag on. So there's a lot. It's pretty amazing.
Professor, did you happen to see the overlays that I uploaded earlier?
I saw a few of them. Looking at them.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was anything in there that you wanted to show as far as our sites in Wyoming and stuff. But anyway.
Let me look at that. Well, let's we've kind of gotten halfway through, so let's take a little bit of break, and we'll be right back. We're going to get us a drink, and we'll be right back. You're watching Brofessor.
Sounds good.
Hi, this is Jerry from Tembo Tusk.
This is Aaron with Artemis Overland Hardware.
Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Kara from Ozark Overland Adventures.
I'm Adam with Oki Overland.
I'm Tate with Overland Spices.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Drew with Rock Squash Designs, here with the Rock Squash.
This is Jeff, Bad Academic Cup.
Hi, I'm Julie, the Overlander next door.
And I'm Phil from Down to Mob.
And you're watching.
And you're watching.
Professor.
Bats.
Bats.
Bat. Crazy.
Professor Bats and Friends.
Professor Bats and Friends.
Professor Bats and Friends.
The Professor Bats and Friends.
Professor Bats and Friends.
Sponsored by Artemis Overland Hardware in Springfield, Missouri. More Expo. Tackform Mounts. Trail Rated Coffee. Linson Solar. Howling Moon Tents and Awnings. Big Iron Overland Rally, June 10th through the 12th in West Mineral, Kansas. Mountain Hatch. Lifesaver Water Filters. MC Ranch Overland. Snowmaster Fridges. EcoFlow. Timbo Tusk. Dow Dynamics Lighting. And our good friends at Midland Radio. Thank you for joining our show. No pros, just bros on this show. Thank you for being here. Here we go.
So like we had talked about earlier, we had taken a trip out to Wyoming and got to see quite a few different areas that we had never been to before.
That's
shot.
Centennial, right?
Yes,
That's in
sir.
Centennial.
Yep. That's on the way up to the snowy range where I took those drone shots.
Okay, that's where we camped. I think this is our camp on the snowy range, probably where you're talking about.
Yeah.
We had found this little spot right on the edge of a river that was flowing pretty good. There was snow everywhere, and beautiful little spot. And then Tony took off to Arizona on us, and did a little thing. We went back to Kansas, and Tony took off the other direction.
Yeah.
So it was pretty fun.
Went from freezing to sweating.
So are you able to bring up that one Centennial shot in Wyoming there? So basically that's the backside of Sheet Mountain. And if you go like to the right of the photo on the other side of the mountain is another mountain called Jelm Mountain. And that's at the base of that mountain is where my parents' ranch is, where I grew up.
Oh, wow.
We passed right by there.
We probably passed right by there.
Very close for sure.
Probably
awesome.
did.
Yeah, because we came down through, what was that little town? It had that Land Cruiser with the tracks on it.
I don't think that was a town. That was a
well, it was on the map.
Oh, was it?
Well, you're right. It probably wasn't incorporated, but
there are some little settlements that are labeled as towns.
I don't remember a sign being there, but I do remember there being like a little shop where you could like rent
Albany.
sides or something.
Albany. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's where we came through. We came up through Fort Collins and then turned off the main highway and went through Albany.
Crazy.
Yeah, there was a 80 series Land Cruiser with tracks on it.
We don't know that they need those tracks on there for sure.
Yeah, I imagine.
That's awesome.
Now Porker has a question. He's a hammer operator, so he said, "I noticed all the rigs use ICOM 5100s. Are all of you ham radio operators?"
Yeah, and so the 5100s we just have in our rigs for XOverland because they have all the features that we want, including digital and GPS built in. So Clay also is involved in search and rescue. So having those other options helps him when he's out on a search and rescue call. On my personal rig, I have an ICOM, and it's the 2730A. The big thing if you are getting into a ham radio is you want the dual band or dual channel. And so the 2730 was a little bit lower profile for my use. I didn't really need all the other stuff. Plus it was half the price. So that's the one I went with. But yeah, the 5100 it's got a large display screen on it. So that was a factor for me on where I wanted to mount it in my own rig. But it's one of the best radios on the market, hands down. And it looked like I just bought another one for an upcoming build. And they're really not that bad price-wise. It's like $450 plus like the antenna and all that. But for a really good ham radio, I mean, it's a bomber radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were a Jeep guy when you first started there? Are you not a kind of where are you at these days?
The Jeep I had before really made me appreciate getting into a Toyota. Let's put it that way. I have nothing against Jeeps. They're amazing vehicles. I had an 04 Grand Cherokee that I put 150,000 miles on because I had it in high school up until 2017. And I don't think the check engine light ever turned off on it, no matter what I did or what it would turn off temporarily, and then it would come back on for another reason.
Yeah, when the battery's dead.
If you just ignore it long enough, it'll go away.
Well, there were times that I was ready to paint over with some black paint, that's for sure, because it was never something that affected the drivability. But I went through, let's see here. So I went through 3 fuel pumps that left me stranded all 3 times that I had to have it towed back. I had to replace the lifters and the camshaft in it. The leak detection system and the emission system is the main cause of the check engine light. I finally ended up having to rip that whole system out and replace everything to get that light to go away. And then I had then started, once it hit 200,000 miles, I was like, okay, I need something bigger. It's just, there's all these weird quirky issues that have been bothering me with it. And so then I started looking into, and that's when I really got into the XOverland show. So I started looking at the Forerunners and the Tacomas, really liking the idea. I just wanted to try something different and new.
Yeah.
And once I looked at, I found it's a 2014 Forerunner Trail Edition. I found it used with 40,000 miles here locally. And it had all the same, and I originally was thinking I wanted to get into a 3rd gen Tacoma to have the crawl controlled locking diff and all those fun things. But then I saw that the Forerunner had all those features, and for the used one, it was way less. I mean, you couldn't buy that same truck right now used for the price that I paid for it. So it was a no-brainer. And I love the fact that being an SUV, coming from an SUV, it was way bigger inside. The cargo area is much larger. The rear seat room, like leg room, is huge, especially compared to a Tacoma. And so I ended up getting it, and now I have 120,000 miles on it, and I've just changed the oil, and I've never had a single issue with it that wasn't my own fault.
Yeah,
so it's, and okay, so the other thing, part of that story was the weekend that I decided, okay, I'm buying this Forerunner. I drove my Jeep to work that day, and I got out and I parked, and I started to smell something a little sweet and burning, and I looked down, and my radiator had cracked open, and it was spilling antifreeze everywhere. And so I just turned around and walked into the camera store, and I was like, I'll deal with that later. I went out and mopped up the antifreeze, but I was like, okay, you're making it really easy to say goodbye. There wasn't sentimental feeling, it faded after that.
Yeah, you're not helping yourself here. I'm a Gladiator fan big time, and so the Odin build was just, I mean, I
miss that truck.
It was incredible.
Incredibly capable. It's very loud on the highway.
It is.
I put a lot of highway miles on it. Even bone stock, we pulled it out. I flew to Detroit, hopped in it, got out on the interstate, and almost immediately there was a whack, 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 whack in the wheel well. I was like, what the heck? So I pulled over on the hard shoulder of the interstate. The thing's got like 10 miles on it, and the wheel well liner was ripping out of it and hitting on the tires. So I was just like, oh my gosh. And by the time I made it to Flagstaff, I had holes drilled in the wheel well liner with zip ties holding it on, and then I had a fully cracked windshield already.
Oh my goodness.
Like,
I've heard so many people that they're on their 2nd or 3rd windshield already. I'm still, I've just got 22,000 on mine, and I'm still on the original windshield. So it's been pretty good to me.
I drive an FJ Cruiser, and I have the same type of windshields, pretty much small and straight up and down. It has no angle to it whatsoever, and I'm on about my 4th windshield.
Yeah, it's purely a design of the windshield. It's not a Jeep or Toyota thing there.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
At the box, so that's kind of the way they're made to do. Well, what rig do y'all have that there at XOverland that's been your favorite?
That's a tough one. Right now, I mean, Orion, our new Tundra build, is pretty hard to beat with the alley cab system.
Can't imagine. Yeah.
Raven having the same alley cab system but in a smaller package. I mean, those two trucks alone are really hard to beat, in my opinion. I am sold on those alley cabs, and I haven't even slept in one yet. Just installing them, working on them. There's so much room to run wires, to tuck in the canvas when you're shutting the lid. When you open it, you can get inside and just push your bed platform out of the way and have standing room. So before these trucks, X3 Meridian with the Habitat was definitely my favorite, just to have the room inside with the standing room and your bed separate. To me, the downside to the Habitat is just the setup's a little bit longer. It's not like a quick push it open and you're done. That's what the alley cabs have. And so the ability to be able to keep your bedding inside, they have that bulky, like chunky look. That's because there's room for your bedding, and there's room that you don't have to tuck every nook and cranny of your canvas when you're shutting the lid. You can just, kind of roughly tuck it in and shut the lid and you're done. Like you don't have to think about it that really. And so those, I've been thoroughly impressed with the alley cabs. And so Orion, though, with just the smoothness and the quietness of the brand new Tundra interior, it's the Crew Max, so you have limousine rear seats, and you still have all the power in the world with that new V6. It's twin turbo. We haven't re-geared it yet. There's no, as of when we built it, there weren't any gear options yet. But with the power and the transmission, I mean, we really don't need to re-gear it. I mean, that's just the next cost that isn't necessary. Because, I mean, after building it, when we were driving it to ship them down to Expo, I mean, I was driving it around. I was like, this thing still feels like it did when it was stock. Like, I mean, yeah, there's probably a decrease in performance, but it wasn't, you'd have to measure it to notice it kind of thing.
Yeah,
so I'm very impressed with that. So very excited to actually get it out in the Nordic series and start actually using it and testing it.
Yeah.
All of my installs will now be put to the test.
Yeah. Will you be making that trip?
I will be. So I won't be doing the first part of it. I'll be flying in for the Iceland portion of it. I just couldn't make that entire span work with family life. I've been trying to balance how long I've been gone for family, and I've got a very, very understanding and supportive family, but I want to keep it very supportive.
Yeah. Use it, not abuse it. Yeah.
So I'm fortunate enough to be able to just fly in for the Iceland portion and swap out, because Kurt will be on the trip and he won't be able to stay for the whole stretch of it. So we're kind of swapping out. So, and that's something we've done on past big trips. Central America, South America, team members swap out. So same thing there.
How long is the total trip for the ones
To be
that are
determined.
going?
There's so many moving pieces right now. It's like, I couldn't even guess on it. The Iceland portion alone will probably be about the same as Alaska. And so it's a full season, like what we've done with South America, Central America. So as of right now, I think the plan was to shoot around 10 to 12 episodes, depending on how it all works out.
So you're only going to be gone for a portion of it. How long does that mean that you'll be away from your family?
That's still the beach too.
Okay.
Okay. 4 weeks-ish is what I would say right now.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. So it's a long time, and it's a lot of work. I mean, the trips are a riot in their own right, but it's also a lot of late nights and a lot of work. I mean, it's not like we're just on vacation having fun, because we wouldn't be able to produce the show and, produce the product that our sponsors are paying for if we just had fun. So it's a lot of work. I mean, we're working hard in a very scenic area.
Right.
Well, I know, from what you've said and from following you on Instagram, social media, whatever, that you really enjoy the outdoors. You really enjoy the overlanding part of it, the camping, the all of it put together. You really enjoy the fishing. I mean, you made that whole scene for me. I love that. So how do you, and this is something out there, because we talked about this earlier before the show started, because a lot of people want to do the YouTube, they want to do the social media, they want to do this, they want to do that, but they also have a love for the outdoors. So where do you find that balance? This is your actual job. For a lot of us, it's a hobby. And I don't want to get to that point where I don't enjoy it anymore because it seems more like work. Yeah. And so how do you balance that out with what you do?
Ooh. Well, honestly, we don't really get that many breaks when we are on the big trip. I mean, there are days that we'll just say, okay, we're just going to take a day to unwind, or, to like reset the trucks or travel or something. But I mean, for the most part on the trips, we are working, but there is a balance of knowing when you got the shot, and then you can turn on the camera and just sit down and enjoy the campfire or the surroundings or what have you. Honestly, it's been more about just trying to get out more on my personal time with my own family and, relax in our own camper, go to the lake and go fishing on our own time. Because when I am at work, I mean, it's working. We're there to shoot the show. But it is, I would say, for folks that are getting into it, try to find that balance of when to turn on the camera and when not to turn on the camera. If you're just so focused on trying to film everything you're doing, you're just going to wear yourself out and it's not going to be any fun. And that's what we do on the trips is we have an idea of what we're out there to shoot. So we know when we need to film and when we don't need to film. And so that helps us balance it. And it's like, I was just listening to a podcast with Mike Pfeiffer, The Last Line of Defense, and Clay on our XOverland podcast. And he was explaining the same thing. As he said that on Mike's, it's like Weekend Lander episodes that he does where it's just an overnight trip. He said half the time he doesn't even film when he goes out. He just wants to be out there and relax. By the time he gets out there and gets set up, it's already dark. And he's like, well, I don't really think there's anything here to film. So he just doesn't. And it's important to find that balance, to get out, you know, take those weekend trips, just camp, enjoy nature. And then, you know, maybe in the next week you can plan on going out and filming something. And then that's when you have the time to actually set up, okay, I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to go try some bushcrafty thing. And that's what folks want to see. They don't want to just see you setting up camp and cooking a steak and then the next day you leave kind of thing. Like, you know, go out there and try being like, okay, well, I'm going to start a fire, but instead of using my lighter, I want to try, you know, a flint rod, or I want to try rubbing two sticks together, or what have you. You know, I want to try to catch a fish with fishing line tied to the end of a willow or something instead of my fishing rod. Like, there's stuff like that that can make it more interesting, and then that's what's worth filming.
Yeah, you know, way before overlanding was a thing. You know, I was glued to the TV watching Survivor Man, and you know,
my favorite
just seeing a person out there that had to live off the land, but did his own videography, had nobody else with him. That intrigued me.
That's
that
hardcore.
He went through all the trouble, but he loved what he did, and he actually is still making, you know, episodes. And
that's hardcore, because when you're already dealing with needing to find food and you're already going 3 days without food and you're lightheaded and you're dizzy and you're hungry, but now I got to go set up this camera and deal with the batteries. It's like, that's hardcore.
Well,
Also,
they're still doing shows, like the one called Alone. You've seen that? They do it on that too.
After getting into Alone, it almost makes Survivor Man seem like a walk in the park.
It does, because they don't have anything.
And
they don't
Alone,
have anything.
They're out there till they tap out, and it's like, it's a mind game too.
Right.
And then they still have to deal trying to hunt and fish and film it, and they'll be out there for 50 days not knowing if they're the last one or about to win $1 million or not. And then they're trying to set up the cameras and be artistic. It's like, that's a next level thing right there.
It's totally different. And, you know, but like you're saying, that's what people want to see. They don't want to see the same thing over and over again. They want to see something new, something fresh. They don't want to see, you know, everything that you're cooking for dinner every day and tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and setting up camp, taking down camp. So how is it with you guys coming up with the creativity part to come out with something new? I know the different places that you go kind of creates its own. But how does the thought process work with the creativity to come up with something new that you know that people want to see?
That's a good question for Clay, honestly. Okay. With him being the director, I don't know if I have a good answer for that one. We try our best to explore new personal stories with like team members and stuff, or like try to, if one team member has a certain, like say with me with the fishing, you know, instead of me just fishing when the cameras were off, we're like, oh, let's film it and see what comes of it. And then honestly, a lot of it is that, where it's like, we're in a really cool spot. If kind of, Alaska especially just films itself, but then we look ahead and think of, okay, well, the three boys haven't been up to Prudhoe Bay and they want to do their Pan America one day. So we try to explore that story. So it's just finding like stories like that we can explore and follow through with. And, you know, that's kind of what ends up making the show. Yeah.
Well, and you having different people that come on for the adventure was really part of what I really enjoyed about the Alaska trip. You know, the Van Stralen boys that were on there, you know, because they've got their own story, and how are they going to mesh with the other guys, because they've done this for a long time. They're not newbies by any means, but you get them on there and you get them saying, you know, I thought we knew a lot until we met these guys.
Yeah.
And that was just eye-opening for me, because you never know enough. Leaders are learners, and you get them saying that, and that was just great how they just developed into and meshed with everybody else.
Yeah,
on the trip.
they're very mature and humble boys for their age. They're a great group. And that's the way I feel too. Like, I mean, I will never think of myself as being some expert overlander because I've just been doing it for a few years, even though I'm with, XOverland. I'm always learning. And I mean, we're always learning. And one of the things I always remembered from when I was in school for photography is Ansel Adams. I'll have to fact check it because I remember hearing my professor say it, but one of his quotes was when he was on Ansel Adams, being one of the most famous landscape nature photographers of all time, said on his deathbed that one of the saddest parts of him dying was he didn't feel like he was done learning. And it's like, that speaks volumes, being one of the best, most well-known photographers of all time, to say that he didn't feel like he was done learning. And I mean, I dealt with customers at the camera store that came in and they were all puffed up thinking that they were the greatest. And it's like, dude, every day something new comes out or something new is discovered or what have you. It's like, yeah, there's always something new to learn or figure out. And so that's what's been really cool about being with the group, especially with Clay and Rochelle and the whole team, is that we're always open to new things and new ideas, and we're always exploring new ways to film something or build a truck or to, edit something. I mean, it's been a lot of fun because it's always a learning process with them.
Yeah.
Why Iceland?
Why not Iceland?
The world's a big place, and there's a lot of places out there to go. And I follow a lot of social media out of Iceland and the Faroe Islands and that Norway. That area is in the top 2 on my list. Gotta be.
Well, that's the way it's been for us, and that's one of the main reasons. Honestly, it was next. And I mean, I don't know of all the main reasons that it was next, but I can assume that it was the next most obtainable spot with all of our timelines. And honestly, Iceland that's just like Alaska. It'll shoot itself, and it's worth making that trip to get there.
Yeah, I can't wait. I've seen so many videos of, and you're taking your own vehicles up there, right? So you're shipping your vehicles there, because I've seen where people go there and they rent these
Arctic
massive
trucks
with the gigantic like monster truck tires on them, and you'll be there with just Toyotas, and I love it. And
we'll be there when the snow's not there, so that's the main reason it'll work out. Those Arctic trucks are incredible because of the snow that they get in the ice pack and their massive tires, and those are trucks that we lust after as well.
I can't imagine. They got to be good for Montana in the winter too, I can imagine.
When we get the real winters,
well, when I went to Yellowstone in the winter, we rode a snowmobile all through Yellowstone, but they had these gigantic people movers with these big, humongous tires on them, and I had never seen those before. That was new for me.
Yellowstone, man, they get some crazy weather because they're in a basin, and because of you'd have to look at the map, but I remember watching a show that explained it, that from the past eruptions of the supervolcano thousands and thousands of years ago, it created this kind of pathway from the ocean without any major mountain ranges to block it down into the park, and then it's kind of a basin area. So in the wintertime, they get some crazy cold air and wet air from the ocean that settles in the park and just kind of creates its own winter weather. So we'll get a pretty mild winter here in like the Gallatin Valley, where Yellowstone just gets dumped on. It's pretty insane to see it in action.
Well, I've when I went there, I didn't really know a lot about the area, but it's just like weird with all the hot spots and the hot lava and the stuff like that. It's almost just like Iceland.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're standing on a super volcano, basically.
Yeah.
There's not many super volcanoes, and Yellowstone is a active but dormant super volcano.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine the videography and the photos that you're going to get from that place. I'm sure that that's probably a photographer's dream come true to
a bucket list item for sure, just like Alaska was. But yeah, I can't wait. I'm stoked. We're all stoked for it.
How long till you leave? When is that trip?
The first part of the team's going to be flying out here shortly. Again, there's so many moving parts. There's no like official dates or anything, but middle of July-ish is when they're going to be flying out. And then I won't be leaving until probably middle to end of August-ish.
Okay.
And then it'll be kind of that July through September when we'll be over there.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's and then we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait.
We'll have to wait.
Yep. Killing us. That's the part that sets, that's why it takes us so long to turn around things, because our edit process. But that's why like Alaska looked like it did with the sound design and the cinematic side is, it's not something we can just pump out in a week kind of thing.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, I can't imagine the hours that you sit at a computer editing B-roll and cutting all that out to just create a 30 or 40-minute show. You've probably got 19 hours that you cut down to less than an hour. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy how much we cut stuff down. I mean, one episode could be already cut down pretty tight to like, say an hour, and it's like, okay, we still got to get like 15 minutes or something. But and a lot of times we look at it and we see if we can make it into 2 episodes or what have you. But yeah, it's crazy. Like that whole fishing scene with us going through the rapids, I cut it down quite a bit, and then Clay came in and he had to cut it down even more. And it's quite the process.
Wow. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, I can't tell you what a treat this was to sit down with you and just get to know you a little bit better and discuss some of the things that I've been wanting to ask you for a long time. And I really appreciate you joining us.
For
I
sure.
can't tell you how much it is.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate everybody who tuned in this evening. I know you had a lot of places to be, but you chose to be here, and we will be putting this out on our podcast tomorrow, and you can catch it there. If you can't watch it, you can sure enough listen to it, but it will be up on our YouTubes and Facebooks from now on. And man, I tell you what a treat. Tanner Johnson joining us here on Brofessor Bats and Friends. I appreciate everybody joining in on us, and I hope you have a wonderful week. And as you go through this week, make sure to remember, live your best life that you can. You never are promised time. And time's running out, people. I mean, I'm old, and it seems like yesterday I was a teenager. So get out there and enjoy life. Look out for number 1 and don't step in number 2.
Join us next week.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Boom.
Brofessor and Friends 2022.
Woo-woo. Thank you for watching.
Brofessor Bats and Friends.
Brofessor Bats and Friends.
Brofessor Bats and Friends.
Enjoy the Brofessor and Bats and Friends.
Brofessor Bats and Friends. Woo!